here with the infamous, the famous Doug Graham, the author of 80-10-10.
Correct.
And everything that is in that book is unbelievably on track. And when you read it, you just get the feeling that it's all correct and that it's all the way it should be in your diet.
Thank you.
So, can you explain some about the 80-10-10 diet, especially for people who might just be starting?
Sure. It's a really simple concept, and it's not one that I came up with. The concept's very simple. What we're trying to do is to encourage people to eat a diet where more than 80% of their calories come from carbohydrate. And it's funny now, it's becoming, as the low carbohydrate diets, fad crazes are, they run in about a 20-year cycle. There's been 5 of them in the last 100 years where people would recommend a low carbohydrate fad craze, which isn't really what they're recommending. What they're recommending is a high fat fad craze. And it's happened 5 times in the last 100 years. It comes on, gets proven to be absolutely not a workable plan, and then it fades out for 15 or 20 years till that generation is forgotten, and then it comes back again. So meanwhile, I'm recommending the opposite, which is a high carbohydrate-based diet where we eat more than 80% of our calories from carbohydrate, less than 10% from fat, less than 10% from protein. People get all excited about the protein, and until I point out that most people in America eat about 10 to 11% of their calories from protein anyway. So if you shoot for about 10, you're still doing the same as everybody else. And basically what happened was, first we discovered the science of nutrition. That wasn't that long ago, but over the last 100 years ago to 80 years ago, we start realizing there's proteins, there's fats, there's carbohydrates, and there's amounts of them that will work better or worse for human health. In 1959, in the Journal of American Medical Association, they stated that they finally had figured out how diabetes is caused, which was by eating too much fat. We reduce the uptake, transport, and delivery of sugar. Sugar can get into your bloodstream, but it can't get out, and this results in diabetes. This isn't news, obviously. It came out in 1959. But just recently on YouTube, a medical doctor put out a similar video, a lot like the article from back then, which is called How to Become a Diabetic in 6 Hours. And he took in a whole bunch of fat, did a bunch of blood work along the way, and you can watch his YouTube video if you just Google or YouTube How to Become a Diabetic or in 6 hours, and you can see the same information be repeated, where he shows that if you consume enough fat, sugar gets into your bloodstream, but it doesn't get out. So in the 60s, there's a guy named Nathan Pritikin who started health retreats where he started using single-digit fat consumption as a way of helping people get well, and he helped a fantastic number of people overcome a huge variety of diseases just by lowering the amount of fat in their diet. Well, I mean, when I went to school, I learned that fruits and vegetables were good for you all the way through school. Fruits and vegetables are health food. Fruits and vegetables are good for you. You got to eat your vegetables and all through that stuff. So I started putting 2 and 2 together. When I went through my medical training, we studied a lot of sports science and noticed once again that the uptake, transport, and delivery not only of sugar to the muscles, which is critical for athletes, but also the uptake, transport, and delivery of oxygen to the cells also is impaired as the level of fat in the body goes up. I started working with patients with emphysema and noticed that when we lowered the fat in their diet, they could breathe better. Just boom, instantly. Their lungs didn't get better, but they could breathe better because the uptake, transport, and delivery of oxygen improved just by lowering the fat. We started looking at cancer, and we realized that cancer cells thrive in an anaerobic environment, an environment where there's not a lot of oxygen. The way to create that is to raise the fat in your diet. And we just, we start looking at heart disease, and everybody's talking fat as a causative factor in heart disease. Start looking at an atherosclerosis, and we start looking at it in digestive disorders. We start seeing that over and over and over again. So eventually, the largest study ever done on nutrition, the Framingham study, comes up with recommendations to lower fat down close to single digits. The largest study ever done in human history on nutrition is the China study, Dr. T. Colin Campbell also recommends, not only does he recommend that fruits and vegetables are the most nutritious and beneficial foods for us, that raw foods are the best for us, and has come out openly endorsing the 80-10-10 diet, but he's still promoting the same concepts, because we look at 80-10-10 with specific parameters: whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants. So I'm really happy to see that Dr. Campbell has now come out with a book entitled Whole, and he's taken an entire book just to say how important it is to eat whole foods and not the oils from foods, or the vitamins and minerals from foods, or the sugar from foods, or the fat or the protein from foods, but to eat whole foods. And I recommend whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants simply as the most nutritious option. But you can do 80-10-10 and include some cooked food. You can do 80-10-10 and include some chicken and fish if you want. But what we're trying to do is control the parameters of how much carbohydrate, how much protein, how much fat, and the healthiest way to do that is low-fat, raw, vegan, whole, fresh, ripe, raw, organic plants, fruit, as much fruit as you want. Fruit's exceptionally satiating. A lot of people find they can't eat that much of it. Yeah. But as much fruit as you want, so that you never crave sweets between meals. You're never looking around for something sweet at the end of a meal. You're never thinking, oh, I finished my meal, but now I really want something heavy. Let me eat that, only to find out that after you've eaten it, you're still looking around for something sweet. And so that complex carbohydrates, cooked starchy foods, bread, rice, pasta, corn, potatoes, so that none of those even look like food, because we know full well that if you take starch and water, you make paste. That's how you hang wallpaper.
Yeah, it is.
Okay? If you take starch and water and eggs, you make pasta. And if you take starch and water and eggs and sugar, you make pastry. I mean, we're not even trying in our language to hide the fact that it's paste, right? It's paste, just different languages. And so I'm not going to recommend paste. I can't in good conscience recommend paste. We know humans have lived on raw food for as long as there's been humans, up until we finally started this cooking experiment. We know that all the other animals on the planet eat raw food. We know that fruits and vegetables are the foods that are best for us. So I recommend a diet of fruits and vegetables, high in carbohydrates from fruit. This is a healthy plan, and we're watching people get smarter. We're watching people regain their health. We're seeing athletes hitting performances that they never even thought was humanly possible for them, and all the right things are happening. So I'm really excited that 80-10-10 is catching on. It's coming out in about 27 languages that we know of right now for sure, and I'm sure there's more to come.
Awesome.
And it's a treat to see Woodstock Fruit Festival not only growing every year really fast,
yes,
but also the number of festivals. I mean, last year there were 3 80-10-10 festivals in the world. This year there were 8 80-10-10 festivals in the world. Next year I'm looking at approaching 20 80-10-10 festivals around the world, and this festival growing apparently 71% for next year.
Yeah, wow, how cool is that?
I'm easy to reach. They can go to my website. Food and Sport is the website. It's the word food, the letter N, and then the word sport. It's 10 letters. If you do food and sport, and it comes out 10 letters, you probably have it right. You can go to my website. You can find the 80-10-10 diet. You can find my new book, Prevention and Care of Athletic Injuries, and all of my other books and tapes, all sorts of information about the seminars and retreats that I do on emotional eating and getting yourself centered again, building self-esteem, fitness performance programs. You can get my stuff on you can go to Amazon and buy my books, and you can get the 80-10-10 diet for free at every library in the United States. Go to any library in the United States. If they don't have the book, because nobody's requested it yet, they're authorized to get it. All the libraries in the United States are on the list to get a copy of 80-10-10. They'll have it for you and for everybody else. Of course, you'll still want to go to my website, because once you read it, you're going to want to give the book away to a few people.
Absolutely. But
I'd love you to order it from your local library and get it into that library as well.
Thank you, Doug. It's been unbelievable information, and I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people.
It's a treat. It's a real treat. Thank you for helping me spread the message and for having your interest in the 80-10-10 diet. If you haven't read the 80-10-10 diet, read it. It'll be good for you.
Absolutely. Thanks.